die off, right? And we can't have caskets for them, so we'll just like dig a hole for them and let them go. And I think that we have to complicate these things, right? Yeah, there is problems with technology, and there is problems with mining. There is problems with clear-cutting massive forests for technology. And that's why I say there's a difference between techno-digital justice and digital equity. Digital equity is making sure that everyone has a laptop. While 4 of you over there are playing games, and these people are trying to eliminate the enslavement of people in prisons in the US, right? And through a person with political values, I say that they should have computers and you all playing on games should not. And some people will challenge that notion. But if we're going to use this, we have to try to eliminate the amount of oppression that is going on. So, eco-liberation, I already kind of spoke about it. It comes from like an animal liberation, disability liberation, and earth liberation movement. And it's played out, you know, through practice and theory. And of course, we know these binaries that exist through eco-ability resistance, animal liberation versus speciesism, disability liberation versus ableism. Ableism is the perpetuation of normalcy and the language that we use. So, and I'll get into language like insane and crazy and moron and boring. And we'll talk about that and how we in the movement use these. And in school and in higher education, use this language, right? We want to cripple capitalism, right? And earth liberation, challenging civilization, right? And what does civilization really mean? It's not just a bunch of houses, but it's a philosophy too. And this philosophy is against savageness, right? Against wild. It's for domestication. It's for property, right? So, maybe if I click again. Oh, it didn't come up. Okay. So, so there's a picture here and a picture there, and this picture over here is, if you can like imagine, okay. So I'm not going to say like pretend you're blind because people that are blind can still see. So on the left, right over here, is Peter Singer getting protested. Peter Singer is the founder of the Animal Liberation Movement, 1975. His book came out, and then above here is like 4 beautiful laboratory dogs or lab dogs, black and gold, or what is it, blonde or gold labs that are service dogs. Okay, and so I'm just going to do it clockwise. First of lab dogs, and why that service animals, horses, dogs, monkeys, etc., bunnies even, are not, they're enslaved, right? They are oppressed, marginalized individuals that are in a relationship that is very oppressive. But they work 24/7, right? And so what we need to do is challenge the service relationship between the owner, which they are an owner of this property. Does that make sense? And it's really difficult because, you know, being diagnosed, you know, a variety of things at a very young age, and then, you know, being involved in the autistic community, and there's people probably here that are involved in the autistic community, and, you know, they say, oh, what we need to do is get autistic kids on top of horses, and they're going to have a great enjoyment. But did you know that autism is a spectrum? And in the last 10 years, the rise of the spectrum is perpetuated and supported by pharmaceutical industries, right? So, hey, does anybody like being in a room that they don't know anybody? You might have autism. Don't like wearing tight clothes? You might have autism, right? Like, okay, don't like to be brushed up in a club by people that you don't know? Well, you might have autism. And it's a spectrum to put other people in these labels. It doesn't mean that these people that have autism don't have differences and have challenges in society. They do, right? But it's a way that the industries perpetuate the oppression and the marginalization of anything and anybody that is different, right? I'm surprised that there's not autistic cats and dogs and trees yet. Because people are really on the bandwagon of anything that is autistic. Of course, like, you know, right before autism, there was ADHD, and everybody had ADHD. Anybody, you know, wanting to walk around and not sit still for 2 hours has ADHD or attention deficit disorder or is hyperactive, right? And I think we're changing as a society and youth and young people that we're interested in being on 2 computers and a phone at the same time, and we can't pay attention to a teacher that's writing on a chalkboard. Does that make sense? So it's nothing that's wrong with us. We're just adapting and changing to our climate, right? So, and then of course, I talked to you a little bit about green anarchism, and that, shock therapy, and a lot of the animal testing that has occurred has also occurred to people with disabilities in institutions. For example, lobotomy would be a perfect example. If you know what a lobotomy is. The lobotomy, I don't know, these people had like PhDs and like from MIT. I mean, these were brilliant people. But for some reason, until the late 1950s, they thought putting an ice pick in somebody's eye and whipping it around would allow them to believe that they wouldn't have a disability, a mental disability anymore, right? I think any 5th grader would tell this individual that this would not work. And guess what? It didn't work. It never worked, right? It actually killed a few people, right? And you can Google it, YouTube, like the practice. It's pretty horrifying. Sometimes they didn't go through the eye. They sometimes went through the temple. They chiseled. And there's a great movie about this, critiquing this, that Jack Nicholson did. It's called One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And a book's out, really speaking to this problem. And so we can kind of now slide in to, now this is like my non-linear thinking, okay? So like, bear with me. People with disabilities, the whole concept of disability, the philosophy of disability is all based on stigma, right? You can be black, white, Puerto Rican, a 10-year-old female, an insider in a prison, or a person in Africa. You can be anywhere and still be labeled as a person with disabilities, right? It's just like moving invisible hand, right? And so right after 2001, there was this little cartoon that popped up. And I'll just read it really quick. American flag, $23. Gasoline, $2. Cigarette lighter, $1.50. Catch yourself on fire because you're a retard? Terrorist, priceless, right? And now we're getting to see the intersections of disability and terrorism, okay? Like what I was talking about before, the first groups I was interested in, and now what I'm talking about and my dissertation was on, is the title was a disability perspective on the terrorization of dissent, right? And today we could see the Connecticut shooting of those 20 kids that were majority white, I believe, and how this kid that went in there had a disability, right? Virginia Tech, mentally insane. The media said it, bam. What happened in Arizona, the shooting of the state representative and the senator and the judge, another person with mental disabilities, right? Even though certain individuals went there for political or social reasons, right? I'm not saying I agree with them, I don't, right? But we can't just label somebody and say the NRA, and then now the federal government is saying anybody that has a disability, we've got to put them on a watch list, right? That's what they're saying. And what we need to do is not allow these people with disabilities to have guns, right? Because they're more of a threat. But we know that people with disabilities also are some beautiful, kind people. Some of them that wrote books, 6 books, and created the ACLU, which I'm talking about Helen Keller, right? And so it's not the individual that has a disability that makes you violent. It's possibly, something else that's going on that makes you violent. Because you're a violent individual. Or you have political, an agenda, and then you believe, because you have this political agenda, right, there's a 24-hour long or so plus manifesto of the individual that shot everybody in Virginia Tech. Does everyone know that? Like, there was a big manifesto. He took a lot of time, right? He was critiquing consumerism, why he couldn't get a girlfriend, why this girlfriend left him. He was talking about why his home was small, that people made fun of him that he couldn't speak proper English. These are like also known as, he was challenging this notion of bullying, getting bullied, right? I mean, but the problem is, like, if you're getting bullied, sometimes the right answer is not violence, but talking to people and counseling, but he didn't have anybody to talk to, right? I do a lot of workshops around the country for K-12. Best way of eliminating bullying, which is just like a catchphrase, is talking and respecting